to cook? Well, it's Christmas time, or near enough, and around this time of year we all like to have our favourite festive treats. One of mine is ginger biscuits, or gingerbread men, or ginger cookies, depending on where you are. These are the ones that you hang on your tree and you decorate, and they can last forever and are actually very simple to make. So, to make these, you will need 350 grams of plain flour, 175 grams of brown sugar, 100 grams of butter, 1 egg, 4 tablespoons of golden syrup, a teaspoon of bicarb, and 25 grams fresh ginger, which I'll add after I've sifted, or 3 to 4 teaspoons of ground ginger. It's quite nice to use both, but I only have access to fresh at this point in time. So, what we're going to do is we're going to sift the dry ingredients into this bowl. Now that that's sifted, we will add our fresh ginger. Then we add the butter, and we just push that in until it becomes a crumb-like consistency with the flour and all the other dry ingredients. Okay, now that's a nice crumb consistency, so we'll add our egg. Plastic bowls, they're never good for this. There we go. So there goes our egg. And then we need 4 tablespoons of golden syrup. Now an easier way to do this so that the golden syrup doesn't stick to your spoon is to preheat your spoon by simply putting it over the gas burners if you have them, or putting it into a warm glass of water or hot glass of water for a few minutes. That's enough. And then you scrape off the excess, because you don't want to waste any, because golden syrup is glorious stuff. And then you just mix it all together until it becomes a dough. This is one of those recipes where after a while it's easier to use your hands to make the dough. And to be honest, for everything I've done so far, I have used my hands along the way. So, once you have it in a ball, and little bits will fall off, but that's fine, don't worry about it. Put it in the fridge to chill for 10 to 15 minutes whilst you preheat your oven to gas mark 4 or 180 centigrade or 350 Fahrenheit. Okay, this has chilled for 15 minutes and the oven is getting very hot now. So obviously we need to roll it. Now flour your rolling pin before you roll, otherwise it will stick. Or you can use a glass or bottle. So just roll this out. And just like with the shortbread, don't worry if it cracks. It's not an issue. And now comes the fun part, cutting out the shapes. Now I've only got a bell and a Christmas tree, so I'm rather limited. But you can get great packs where you get pretty much all the Christmassy shapes that you could imagine. So just cut out as many as you can. Now as you can see, I've cut them out and I've put them onto a lightly greased tray. I've also cleaned up the table, and I have to say there was an awful lot of excess dough from this. So what I've done is I've frozen it for another occasion. That's the great thing about this. If you make too much dough, you can freeze it, and then when you want to make them again, you can just defrost it. No problem at all. So these are now going to go into the preheated oven for about, I'd say, 15 to 20 minutes, or until they've gone lovely and golden brown. So whilst those are baking in the oven, we'll get on with our icing. Now I'm going to use the same mixture of icing here to have 2 colours. I'm only going to have white and red, but feel free to do whatever you wish. So this is 233 grams of icing sugar, and to that we're going to add 1 egg white. Now you only want the white for this, you don't want the yolk. And also be aware of the fact that this does, yes, have raw egg in it. So if you're pregnant, I'm afraid you can't have this if you're that paranoid. But to be honest, modern checks for eggs make sure that they haven't got salmonella in, so it's very rare. So once you do that, you get your whisk and you beat it in. Okay, now just a side note, I didn't need to, but if your egg white is not enough, you can add a little bit of water, but you don't want it to get to anything other than that consistency. You can also flavour it with a little bit. This is plain, but a nice thing to do for this kind of icing is to put lemon, or because it's festive, peppermint, or anything you feel like into it. So, half of this we're going to put into a simple Ziploc bag. So, let's get off the spatula. Now what you want to do when you put it into the bag is you want to get it to one corner. An easy way to do it is simply to put the bag in your hand, with your hand inside of the bag, scrape it onto the corner of it, and then just fold it over afterwards. So that's one of our piping bags, and you don't need to buy expensive piping bags. These are just Ziploc bags. Now we've got another half of it here, so very carefully I'm going to add just a few drops of red colouring. Start off with less, because you can always add, but you can never take away. That should probably be enough, actually. And then we put this into a bag as well. These have been taken out of the oven and have been allowed to completely cool. I will make an amendment to something I said earlier. These took 25 to 30 minutes at gas mark 4. I would personally turn them up to gas mark 6 or the equivalent thereof. So, now that they are cool, and they must be completely cool, you can decorate them with whatever you want. I've chosen to stay very simple. I've got red icing. I had to add a lot more icing, colouring to it than I did show. My white icing, and some silver balls. You can of course use chocolate chips or whatever you have to hand. A nice thing also you could do is make a little hole in the top when they're still raw, and then you can put ribbons through them and tie them on your tree. But I didn't feel like doing that. So, to pipe your icing, what you do is you get the corner of your bag, you very carefully cut a tiny little hole, or as big a hole as you want, and then, keeping pressure on the back, you use the front simply to guide. And then you just decorate them as you wish. And here are our finished products. And as you can see, I've had a taste of one, and I have to say I'm quite proud of these. I haven't made them without any powdered ginger before, but it works just fine with just fresh. Anyway, what you have to do is leave these overnight so that the icing can harden completely. They get a crust very quickly, so if you're putting silver bubbles on it and the like, I recommend putting them on immediately after you've applied it and then letting them dry, because inside they're still gooey. So, just for the sake of you, let's try another bit. I am very proud of that. That's good. As you can see, the icing is still very gooey, which is why you have to leave them overnight. That's simply before you pack them. If you want to eat them immediately, go ahead. Well, I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. I hope you'll have a go at making these yourself, and I hope you have a very good Christmas. See you next week on The Faceless Cook.